The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. Tuesday, December 3rd. Big slate here today in the NHL. I'm your host, Andy McNeil. Today's my birthday, actually, and I'm only saying that because after the show, I'm gonna have to jet out real quick and renew my license because, like everybody else, I leave it to the exact the absolute last possible time before dealing with that stuff. So I don't know if anybody else can relate, but yeah, looked down at my driver's license and said, "Oh crap, gotta go get that renewed today." And the other reason I say that is that I don't have my history for the last decade, but my birthday never seems to go well for me. So I'm shooting for the moon today, hoping for a turnaround in that regard from a betting perspective. And I've got some long shot bets, and I believe Nick does too. So we'll bring him in right now. Nick Martin, Daily Faceoffs, Nation Network writer. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. Yeah, happy birthday to you.
Thanks,
So
buddy.
let's turn around that trend of you having losing days on your birthday. I feel like that's the kind of thing I don't put much stock into. So maybe you're due.
No, but I they just stick with me, right? Because I've had a lot of birthdays over the last 10 or 15 years that have gone sour because of hockey and betting. So looking for a good one here for my 25th birthday. Um, that's a joke, by the way. I'm much older than that, but anyway, let's get it started. Let's start with the Montreal Canadiens. Big news. Obviously, we had a inkling as Laine had made an Instagram post over the weekend or on Monday, actually, I believe. And there was some word that he would be returning to the lineup. Of course, there was that scare when Justin Barron collided with him knee on knee in practice, and if that had taken Laine out, I definitely would agree with producer Jake that this team is cursed. But yeah, big news, good news that Laine will be making his debut on Tuesday versus the Islanders in front of the Bell Center crowd. And of course, he'll be skating alongside Uri Slavkovsky and Kirby Dach, two players who've really got to get it going with a lot of struggles as of late. But I think we're both in agreement here, Nick. The Isles are, not a very good team. They're an average team, but haven't really been playing like one. They've, arguably only beaten one good team, if you want to call the Canucks a good team, over the entire stretch during Barzell's absence, and he's not going to be back for this one. So I think the Canadians have enough firepower here, most of all, to keep this one close and hopefully get into overtime because this Islanders team has gone to overtime or a shootout in around 35% of their games to date. So I think there's a pretty strong signal to that. You've talked about it quite a bit, and of course this matchup has been decided by one goal in 6 of the last 10 meetings. 4 of those games have gone to overtime. So I think with the offensive struggles that the Islanders are seeing right now, and the Canadians' ability to score some goals, I think that we could see this one go to overtime, and plus 33 odds are pretty appetizing.
Yeah, I love these Islanders ties. It's been over a full season sample where they've been profitable, and the numbers just continue to be. I mean, that number is obviously based off the entire league, but Islanders ties continue to hit at a high rate, and I love playing them. And they've been good to us this year. I've had a few heartbreakers lately. I played it in that Detroit game. The reason I think it's so good is that they're so bad with the lead. They sit back. I think it's in their head a little bit, and they always
Yeah.
let the other team into the game. The problem lately has been they can't even hold it to get to overtime. I had a heartbreaker in that Detroit game. The Red Wings scored with 53 seconds left to break up the ties. I played in a few since then. They did tie versus the Capitals, but it feels like it's always live. And I do really agree that this looks like a good spot to expect close score lines throughout. We've seen the Islanders offensive upsides really muted, but they're still defending reasonably well. I don't think there's too much chance that the Canadians blow them out of the water here. I think that it's pretty likely we should just see one team up a goal or two the whole way. I think overall, probably a pretty low event matchup. So, yeah, I do think that this is a really good spot to go back to that trend.
Yeah, just in general. I mean, the Islanders, it seems that they win or lose as a result of a consequence of luck, right? I mean, like the games are so close, they're so tight. This team is 5-5 straight up when allowing 2 or fewer goals. That's crazy to me, right? Like, how can you be 500 when you allow 2 or fewer goals, right? Like that doesn't happen. You should be, 8-2 at the worst, probably in that situation. But I think it just says a lot about this team. Mind you, I do think that this could be a little bit of a high scoring game as far as the Islanders are concerned because Montreal is so bad defensively. And that's why I'm also backing Simon Holmstrom for an anytime goal. He was plus 320 at Bet365 earlier this morning. I believe he would still be around there. He's skating on the top line with Anders Lee and Bo Horvat. And while he hasn't really made a name for himself yet, he's well on his way. He's got 4 goals on 8 shots over his last 2 games. I guess this seems like a little bit of a reach that he'll score again. But hey, strike while the iron's hot before his odds are adjusted too much. They've probably already been adjusted quite a bit already. But this is a great opportunity for him against a Montreal team who's always a good matchup for a guy who's willing to shoot the puck. And they've allowed more goals per 60 minutes than any other team in the NHL. So I think plus 320 on Simon Holmstrom, given this opportunity that he has with Barzal out of the lineup. I think this is a great spot to back him at better than 3-1 odds.
Yeah, I do think he's legitimately a better than average shooter. And like you said, he's got some good roles right now, taking on the Canadians as well. So don't hate that at all. The Isles,
Sure.
though, they're scoring, they really have. I mean, yeah, you can point to him as being one of the best ones right now. That's part of the problem. They've scored 2.56 goals
Yeah.
per game this season. So, yeah, don't mind the look at all. But I think will be tough for them to blow anyone out of the water too often.
Yeah, absolutely. But that trio, Horvat, Holmstrom, and Lee, they've played roughly 30 minutes together this season, mostly, recently. But they've outscored teams 4-0 in that time at 5-on-5. And Holmstrom has scored all of those goals. So that just, says everything you need to hear about the Islanders, and hopefully he'll be able to strike again tonight. But I think, outside of liking the tie at plus 333, if I had to pick a side, it's Montreal or nothing here for me. I know there's been a move, obviously, with Laine back, but I certainly wouldn't be back in the Islanders in this spot whatsoever. So I've landed on a draw at the long shot odds, the Holmstrom goal at long shot odds. But I really don't see why anybody would want to back the Islanders in this spot, even though both of their goaltenders, Varlamov, kind of banged up right now. I think he is traveling with the team, but they've had a lot of success against Montreal, but they haven't had a lot of success at the Bell Center as of late, and Montreal's been a lot more competitive at home too. They're 5-7 straight up compared to 3-9 on the road. So yeah, definitely Habs is the lean, but I like the tie here and I like the Holmstrom goal. So if nothing else, I'll let you pick what game we should move on to next.
Let's go to the Colorado Sabres game. Stay in order here, and I do think this will be a pretty fun game. And I
All right.
like the prop that I have here.
Yeah, for sure. You like a goal scorer, right?
I do. I like a pretty chalky goal scorer, but Tage Thompson is at plus 180 to score in this matchup. I think that's a really good number. You look at the rate.
There are chalkier goal scorers out there, Nick. That's not that.
I mean, there's 3 guys favored to score above him in this game. So
yeah, there you go.
Obviously, he's the Sabres favorite, but the Avs are still struggling defensively. This isn't like a matchup that I'm afraid of by any means. You'll probably see them stabilize a little bit. But with that said, they're still allowing nearly as many goals as anyone in the league. They're at third with 3.72 goals against per game. So even if you're going to say they stabilize a little, still a plus matchup for Thompson. And he's looked really good since returning to the lineup. He's been a little snake bitten. You could say his finish hasn't quite been there, but he's been getting tons of chances. He has 16 shots in 3 games since returning to the lineup. And there's been some really good ones in the mix there. Me and you were both. I couldn't believe he didn't score in that Wild game where we had Minnesota. That was kind of a lucky one. Had some really good looks on the weekend versus Vancouver. So I think he's looked true to form. And when you look at the rates he's been scoring at this season, plus 180 is a pretty great number when you consider that he's getting a plus matchup. So I think that there is plenty of logic to just take Tage to bounce back and find the score sheet here.
Yeah, no, plenty of logic for sure. The Avs are not a team that I don't think anybody should be scared to target from a player prop perspective or whatnot. I think there's still a lot of issues with this team, like you said. So I like that look for sure. Man, the Sabres really frustrated me last week when we had the Wild in that 1-0 game. I had Kaprizov over 1.5 points. He scored 6 minutes into the game on that 4-on-1 play or was it 4-on-1 or 4-on-0? I can't remember. But they scored early and then that was it. They won 1-0. So luckily got the goal, but I really wanted that over 1.5 points prop. And I didn't get it, but overall I had a pretty good weekend, Nick. I went, I wasn't too active this weekend. I had some family stuff to attend to, but 3-1 on Saturday, 1-1 small tiny profit on Sunday. Didn't have any bets on Monday, but you did. I read your article on Daily Faceoff. You have been beating that Nick Schmalstrom for a little while here, and he paid off for you over the weekend with 3 goals in his last 2 games. Is it?
Yeah, he's looked good. I think if the numbers stay the same, I'll probably keep playing it. And then I got both the sides. I did actually live bet Utah yesterday and lost on that, but they played really good. I actually already kind of I feel like the last few games they've really been standing out. I bet them on the weekend versus Vegas, so won't dwell on that too much. They of course have a week-long break before they play Buffalo on Saturday, or not quite a week, but I think that actually could be an interesting spot as well. So it's been better so far. Won every slate in December, so hopefully we can build off that here.
Nice. Just want to remind everybody it is December 3rd. So just joking. Just joking.
I texted you. I dove into my sides on December 1st, and I was at on a 4-17 run in 3-on-3 in shootouts. So I think at some point, hopefully get closer to 500 there would help a lot.
For sure. So I saw you also bet Jesper Bratt over to be basically a plus player in the game, over 0.5 plus minus, and that was at plus 135. That's a market that I've been looking to get into a little bit more because I do see some numbers that seem pretty appealing. And that certainly stuck out to me as one that was, what's that doing there at plus 135? So, is that something you've been targeting a little bit more, that market, the plus minus market?
Not really, but that one just kind of stuck out to me. I think part of the reason the number was what it was is he's only +3 on the year. I think he was only had a positive rating, and if you were only looking at that, you'd be saying it was a pretty bad price. But I thought it really fit well versus the Rangers right now because I thought their chances of scoring at even strength were pretty low in that game. And that obviously Bratt and Hughes are pretty much just the worst possible duo for the Rangers to deal with right now, given the way they've struggled to defend the rush. So yeah, I was lucky to get that one home.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely be aware of how plus minus is calculated if you're going to.
That's the thing. Yeah, so you don't.
It doesn't make sense really at all. So
yeah, you don't get dashed up if you're on the penalty kill, which is obviously important. You don't get a positive if you're on the power play and you score, which is also quite relevant for Bratt. But yeah, I thought everything kind of worked well. So that one just stood out to me when I don't usually bet that market.
For sure. Yeah. I just wanted to throw that out there because you did mention even strength scoring and that's, that's what counts. So, I like it. Those are 2 great props. So great day for you yesterday. Me though, outside of this next one, I've got a lot of long shots. I'm going to not really go in order here because this is the one I'm looking at. I'm on Connor McDavid over 3.5 shots on goal. Hit this one on the weekend against the Avs. Keep in mind, he's now, I don't know if it's 7 of the last 8 games or 8 of the last 9, but he's had a pretty good run versus the Avs outside of his current run where he's hit in 8 of the last 10 games. So, this is another matchup. Obviously, it's against the team that, on the surface looks like a really tough opponent, and they can take down the Oilers. They did just a couple of weeks ago, 10 games ago, I believe. So, it can happen, but of course, Mark Stone now out for the Vegas Golden Knights. The last game that he played, was against Edmonton in Connor McDavid's first game back. And the Oilers, while I don't think they're necessarily playing their best hockey right now, they've had some pretty ugly performances. You look at their game logs, you look at their 5-on-5 expected goals, some really, really ugly performances over the last 9 games or so. But the offense is alive again, right? And even if it is mostly being driven by Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I think there are some encouraging signs there. You're seeing production out of guys like Vasily Podkolzin kind of becoming more of a more regular thing. And then of course, obviously Kasperi Kapanen chipping in his opportunity, playing on the team's top line there in the last game. Connor Brown playing pretty good. Like these are good things for the Oilers, and hopefully they'll continue once they get Zach Hyman back. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet, but there is a chance that he could go on Tuesday against Vegas. But I really like McDavid to go over 3.5 shots. Vegas pretty much ranks among the bottom 10 teams in most defensive metrics. Not shots against, but shot attempts, expected goals, everything. So they're gonna allow chances. And he's got 25 shots combined in his last 5 trips to Vegas. Hasn't gone over the total in all of those games, but he's had some games where he's a couple of games where he's finished with 8 shots at T-Mobile Arena. So I think he really, he steps up in most cases when there is a good match or against a good team in this kind of matchup. And I think this isn't going to be any different. So at -105, I really like McDavid to go over 3.5 shots on goal again. He's done it in 8 of the last 10 games. And yeah, I think it's a good bet, and it's going to continue to be a good bet until it's not anymore, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think until they move it pretty significantly, it's a good play. Especially, he just has so much time with the puck on his stick. Like, it's so obvious to say, but when he gets in these rhythms where he's just trying to shoot more,
Yeah.
and I think it's really looked like on the power play too. He started to just take his own shot from the left circle a lot more often and is finding some success there. And yeah, I think Vegas is kind of a uniquely good matchup because they really don't defend well. You look at how they've defended versus better teams lately, it's been pretty ugly. So it's kind of a unique matchup because the Oilers are favored. I actually don't mind their chances, but Vegas has been pretty good at keeping games close, and the Oilers goaltending just continues to make every game into, closer than it probably needs to be. So I feel like you're getting a pretty good game script here a lot of the time.
For sure. And a note about the goaltending, I think it's kind of funny how, Vegas was obviously off to that really, really great start. They were 8-0 at home to start the season, had a little bit of a rough start on the road that they never really got figured out. But that was when Aiden Hill was kind of struggling to start the season through his first 6 or 7 games. He's looked a lot better since then, right? And he's come around a lot. He's playing good hockey right now.
Yeah.
And I think he is, there's I think I believe 6-4-2 without Stone in the lineup right now. So I think he's a big reason why they have been able to keep their heads above water and had they've been able to hold on to this lead in the Pacific Division. But several teams, including the Oilers, are closing in. And I'm very hesitant to get excited about anything Stuart Skinner does right now because it's been such a tough stretch this season. I mean, his prior to the game against Colorado, his last 9 games, like overall, had been horrible, right? 9-10 game stretch of just pretty much bad performances. But he played one of his best games of the season. Is definitely his best game in over a month against the Avs there on the weekend. So definitely a good sign for Skinner going forward. But I don't really like a side in this game. I think the -125, -130 price point is pretty fair. With not knowing if Zach Hyman is going to play or not tonight. So I'm gonna stand pat on that one and just stick with McDavid over 3.5 shots at -105. That is in addition to the Islanders and Habs to go to overtime or a shootout at +333. And Simon Holmstrom to score an anytime goal at +320. Nick, let's go to the Canucks and the Wild. You like the Wild here. I'm on that side as well. I just haven't quite locked it in yet, but I'm considering it here now that the odds have kind of shifted for some reason.
Yeah, I think the Wild are a great bet at -140 here. Gustafson's confirmed, so That's kind of the one thing that I was afraid of. And I do think there's some upside in locking the bet in now. We haven't seen Kevin Lankinen confirmed, and he has started 4 or 5. So I think you also have the chance to get some more line value if you end up lucking into a Seelov start, who has really struggled. And I just think overall right now, the Canucks are a good team to fade. They've been finding ways, but it's looked super unsustainable. Especially when you consider who they've been playing over this road trip. That's the other thing. It's not a great scheduling spot for the Canucks. The Wild are on 2 days rest, played their last game at home. Canucks are at the tail end of a long road trip. And throughout this road trip, they've been outchanced 63-42 in high danger chances. And I think it's looked that bad. Like, they've really just done exactly the right amount of stuff to find wins. And you got to give them credit for that. I think they were obviously pretty good in close games last year under Tocchet. This is a team that kind of everyone, for a huge part of last year was saying wasn't quite as good as their record. So there is probably, some argument to say that this is actually just what they do. But I still think it's altogether looking really unsustainable. The right side of the defense core looks terrible. And I think that with Hronek out, it's simply a flaw. And the Wild have been pretty damn good. I mean, you could say they've faced somewhat of a easy schedule. Maybe they're not quite as good as their ranked top team in the league in points. But you look at what the Canucks have done. They've gotten outchanced heavily over this road trip versus all non-playoff teams. So this is by far the hardest matchup they've had this road trip. And all the other ones have been, pretty unconvincing. I wasn't very thrilled. On Friday, I bet the Sabres to beat them. I thought the Sabres probably were the better team. And they've just had so many little things, kind of every little break just goes their way. Like Tage Thompson in overtime misses a complete unchecked grade A all day. Lankinen had to push out from the goal line too. So it's even probably a better chance than a breakaway. And he misses it, and then they go the other way and score. Same kind of thing versus Detroit. They did, show some resilience, but we don't think the Red Wings are great, and that game easily could have gone Detroit's way. So I think it's a good spot to fade them because I do think they're kind of just holding up a little too much value because of their record, which obviously matters. But I think 10-2-0 on the road is an extremely favorable take to their actual level. And we obviously get a pretty good team to back versus them in the Wild. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised Minnesota's not a bigger favorite here.
Yeah, for sure. Just as you were talking about all that, I locked in the Wild at minus 140. I think they should be closer to into the minus 150s here now that Gustafson's confirmed, and even more so, like you said, if Seelovs ends up getting the start tonight for the Canucks. So we are on the same side there. And the action is piling up here for me. It's either going to be a great night, the best birthday ever, or I'm going to wipe out a third of my profit in one day. We'll see. Probably the later, but whatever. We'll we'll roll with the punches, right? So, next up, I do want to talk about the Jets and the Blues. I think this is an interesting matchup because it might seem kind of crazy to look at a team with an 18-7 record and say, hey, like there are a lot of concerns here, but they've lost 6 of their last 9 overall. So 7 of those losses have come in the last 9 games, right? So it is concerning. Aside from the 4-3 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights, 6 of their 7 losses have been by multiple goals as well. So they haven't really been close. And the Jets, over the last 9 games, just have totally dropped off on offense. I mean, this was the top offensive team in the league, 4.22 goals per 60 minutes in all situations through their first 16 games. But over the last 9 games, only 5 teams have been worse on offense. They've scored 2.22 goals per 60 minutes. And their defense has kind of dropped off here, too. They went from being the best defensive team in the league. Now they're ranked 22nd over the last 9 games. I think they went from allowing 2.12 goals per 60 minutes in all situations to allowing like 3.22 goals in all situations. So pretty big shift here. And I don't think it's going to necessarily stick. I think this team will figure it out. There's a lot of talent here. Obviously, Hellebuck, he's going to win most games that he starts. They'll probably win tonight because he is starting. So that's not really, I guess, what I'm concerned about. I wouldn't bet on the Jets at minus 225. Nick and I were talking a little bit before the show, and we both agree here that it's, Blues or nothing. Well, not nothing, because I'm going to bet on Vladislav Nemesnikov to score an anytime goal at plus 450 odds. Everybody's talking about the opportunity that Brad Lambert's going to get tonight with Nikolai Ehlers now on injured reserve. They've called up Lambert. What was he? The number 30 pick in what year? 2022, I want to say.
Is that how far he ended up dropping in the end? That seems
I
crazy.
think he was like number 30, wasn't he?
Yeah, I know he dropped quite a bit relative to where he.
Man, I'm smart. Hockey encyclopedia right here. Anyways, Brad Lambert, number 30th pick in 2022. He's going to skate on what will probably be, if not the youngest forward line in the NHL. Don't you think, Nick? I mean, him, Cole Perfetti, and Gabe Vilardi. I think that's an average age of like 22 or something like that. So it's a pretty young line, but a pretty interesting look nonetheless. But Nemesnikov is going to be skating between Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. And obviously, you look at Scheifele and Connor, and you're like, well, those are the guys that are going to score goals. But Nemesnikov, I mean, his totals aren't too shabby, man. For a guy that like plays less than 14 minutes a night on most nights, he's got 6 goals and 9 assists in 25 games. Like, that's respectable. And he's the kind of guy that can take advantage of these kind of opportunities. You look at his game logs, more ice time means more shots on goal, more scoring opportunities. So I'm going to take a flyer on him and go for the plus 450 anytime goal because I do think this is going to be, maybe projects to be a lower scoring game, but I don't necessarily think we're going to see like a 2-1 finish here or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I know. Good stuff. I like it. I mean, the Blues, I still think they play such low event hockey, but I think they're always going to give up their share of chances as well. I definitely don't believe in that defense core. I think the Jets stuff is interesting too, because I think it's just one of those things. They've probably tailed off a little bit. And I think as other teams have kind of gotten up to speed, they haven't really been able to elevate their game. Like, it seems like they just came out of the gates, probably after a better camp and closer to top form already. Yeah. But I do think it's one of these things too. You look at it and it's just like you're only going to win such a high percentage of like these super close coin flip type matchups. And I think that's just the reality of it. And when it happens a ton, we hear probably more explanations about why it's happening than are needed. And then you get in these ruts where you're losing these 1-goal games. And I think you probably hear more explanations about what's going wrong than you probably do. I think at the end of the day, people probably overvalue how much you truly control, especially when it just comes down to who's, finishing a couple of scoring chances one way or the other in any given matchup. So I think it's a bit of a dull explanation, but I feel like that's kind of what's gone on with the Jets here. They have played some really good teams too. I thought that they didn't play bad by any means versus the Stars on Sunday, but Dallas was clearly up for that one. And it was kind of just one of those well-played games where, you just take a tough loss to a really good team. So it feels like they've had a few more matchups like that lately. And maybe that they haven't really been able to elevate their play as all the other teams are getting into top form.
Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely worth noting here that they've played most of their games. I think 9 of their last 11 games on the road, and that obviously is going to have something to do with them not winning as much as they were earlier in the season. So definitely take that into account for sure. And
home.
What's that? Sorry,
they're 9-1 at home so far.
Yeah, and 9-1 in their last 10 versus the St. Louis Blues. So a lot of dominance here in this matchup. And the Blues aren't, totally healthy either. Pavel Buchnevich, he was injured last Wednesday, I believe, against New Jersey, left in the second period. Didn't play versus Philadelphia. So he's listed as day-to-day. He's traveling with the team, but, he'll probably get into action at some point, but probably, I'm guessing, not on Tuesday against Winnipeg, so he won't be able to help them there. But yeah, I like the Nemesnikov goal look. I don't think, I think, like I said, it would be, I think St. Louis wouldn't be that shocking as an upset here, just given how Winnipeg has looked, and it's their first home game in a while. But this is a big stretch for the Blues. I mean, they had 2 impressive wins over the Rangers, who are not as good as anybody thinks, I guess, and the Devils, who they shut out 3-0. I thought they played a decent game against the Flyers when they came home, but they've been all right on the road, 6-7 straight up on the road. 2-0 under Montgomery, of course. So we'll see if they can continue that. But no side here in this one for me. Just the goal for Nemesnikov. Nick, that's pretty much it for me. In addition to what I added, the bet on the Wild while you were talking just a little bit earlier. You have anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap this thing up? Actually, before you get to that, I do want to mention we did shift from the Daily Face-Off YouTube channel over to the DFO Betting and Fantasy YouTube channel, which used to be the Canada Sports YouTube channel or Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel. So if you're already subscribed to the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel, then you're already subscribed to this one. But if this is your first time watching over on this channel, please subscribe, like the video, help us build things over here. The Daily Face-Off YouTube channel will be gearing more towards just your everyday hockey talk, while this one will be housing all of the betting and fantasy shows like the Puck Portfolio, Starting Goalies, the Daily Face-Off Fantasy Minute, and much more, I'm sure, over the next several weeks as we get going here. But yeah, just wanted to update everybody on where we're at right now and what's going on. We're still going to be here 1 p.m. Eastern time, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Going forward, so that doesn't change, but just a change in the location. So yeah. Anyways, Nick, let's finish this thing off. You have one or two games that you want to talk about?
Yeah, the other one I'll go into. I wrote the Flames Nation Blue Jackets game up, and I do like the prop that I think everyone's going to want to see hit in Sean Monahan scoring at plus 280. I think that obviously on the night they honor Goudreau. It's a narrative that I think everyone in the hockey world would love to see happen. And I do think that it's not a bad number at all. I think that top line in Columbus continues to look like a legitimately dominant top line. Their underlying results are excellent. They've been really good. And when you look at a plus 280 price tag, Monahan's had a single goal in 30% of his games this season. And I think the underlying results suggest that he's going to continue scoring at that rate. So you're not going too far down the line of saying, obviously he's going to be up for this one. You'd think he's going to get a good amount of ice time. And the Flames really haven't defended all that well. I think we'll see them bring a better performance this game after what was a pretty horrific road trip, but still a better than average matchup for Monahan. So yeah, I'd love to see him score tonight. And I think we're getting a pretty good number to sprinkle on that happening. So yeah, I think the bet I have for the night that I hadn't touched on.
All right, I love it. So you've got a couple of anytime goal scorers. I've got a couple. I'm going to quickly recap everything right now. Simon Holmstrom, anytime goal plus 320. That was at Bet365. Montreal and the Islanders to go to overtime or a shootout. That was plus 333 at Sports Interaction. Vladislav Nemesnikov, anytime goal plus 450. That's for the Winnipeg Jets. That is also at Sports Interaction. Minnesota minus 140 is widely available at multiple sports books. That's the money line that Nick was talking about. And Connor McDavid over 3.5 shots on goal minus 105. I believe that's pretty widely available, but I bet it at Sports Interaction. So check it out there or on the Action app. You won't see the draw play though, because I can't track three-way results on the Action app, which Nick and I are both gonna have to get after them about. But we do have it probably tracked elsewhere, right, Nick? So, anyways, what do you got, man?
So I've got the Tage goal. I like the Canadians tie with you. The Wild money line, Monahan goal. I think that's it that's left, right? It seems small, but. And then I did have a couple totals that I tracked in the Action app yesterday, but they've all moved half or full goal. So
yeah, good to know though. What are those?
I had the under in the Jets game. There were 6s out there at open, and then over 5.5 in the Kraken Hurricanes game.
Nice. The Winnipeg and St. Louis game is now at 5.5, correct?
Yeah. So I passed at that point, and I think that's it. So, and then I did do a quick look ahead to tomorrow. The one that I was kind of interested in was the Blackhawks. I thought that they could be kind of sneaky versus your Bruins, who play tonight. But That was a lot more obvious than I expected because they're plus 130. So I thought it might be one where we kind of see league's 32nd ranked team being a little undervalued, but it looks like more obvious than I thought.
Yeah, for sure. It is, kind of a sneaky spot for Chicago because Boston, they look like they're kind of on, not rested, but they've had one day off, but they're in the process of playing 6 games in 9 days right now. I believe they're going to finish that off versus Detroit later this week. So yeah. Or no, it's Detroit that's the sneaky spot. Sorry, because they're playing Detroit today and then Blackhawks tomorrow. So that's what I meant.
Right.
I think the spot versus the Red Wings today is kind of a sneaky spot for the Red Wings, just because you don't really get the sense that Boston is tired, but they are in this really condensed stretch of games right now, and tomorrow is going to be their 6th game in 9 days. So that's why it's really important to read my schedule breakdown every week on dailyfaceoff.com, which comes out every Monday. So don't miss it, man.
Yeah, I was tempted by the Wings. I thought they've looked a little better lately. It feels like they're, playing some pretty respectable hockey, and it seems like the Bruins are still just going to have such a hard time, pulling away. These teams just played, and it was a pretty close 2-1 game. So I definitely wouldn't be interested in betting the Bruins. I'll be, kind of frustrated if the Wings win, but I think I'll just live with letting that one pass.
I was just happy that they, brought a good show in the Centennial game on Sunday.
I bet them to cover the puck line in that one. So
Nice. Yeah, you homer. Anyway,
Montreal.
last thing of note, I guess. I just want to also add that obviously Nick and I do a lot of writing around the Nation Network. We've both. Do you have anything out on dailyfaceoff.com today?
I will have my props piece coming.
Okay, so player props coming up at DFO a little bit later. I've got a Canadians Islanders preview up on dailyfaceoff.com. I've got a Winnipeg Jets St. Louis Blues preview up on dailyfaceoff.com. And over on Oilers Nation, I have an Oilers Vegas Golden Knights preview. Nick, I believe he has the Flames covered over at Flames Nation, and the Canucks over at Canucks Army. So all the bases covered in Canada today as far as the Nation Network goes from a betting perspective. And thankfully, we didn't have to talk about either team from Ontario. If only every show could be like this.
Yeah, the Canucks Army people are not going to like me right now. But the thing is, I actually think what they've done is really impressive, and they're without some key pieces. So I'm not trying to just rag on the team too hard. I just think from a handicapping perspective, what they've done isn't all that impressive.
I don't know about you, but I think the Canucks Army is probably the saddest army in the world.
They're pretty nuts.
But don't come after me. Don't come after me. I'm sorry. Anyways,
you're asking. I wouldn't make.
I'm asking for it. We will see you again on Wednesday to cover everything that's going on in the NHL from a betting perspective. But until then, good luck with your bets and take care.